Morning, fish keepers. Cam here from the fishroom.co.nz. We've done it. We've made it to Friday. Let's be happy and let's do lots of coffee.
Yeah, I'll pretend it's a coffee.
Yeah, it's really hot still. We'll just let that cool down just a smidgen. All right, we won't talk too much. We have ourselves a guest sitting in the back room. Bring him up. Good morning,
Hi, everyone.
Steven.
Good morning, Stephen.
Thank you very much for joining us. It is much appreciated. Can you please introduce yourself and let people know who you are?
Yeah, it's great to be with you guys. My name is Steven Chong. I'm a competitive aquascaper and also YouTuber. My channels are Stevescapes on YouTube and Instagram. Pretty much like my main hobby has been in the aquascaping world, planted aquariums, and mostly I have been interested and involved in the international contest scene. That means the Japan International Aquatic Plant Layout Contest primarily, but also there's numerous big and interesting international contests right now. The KIAC in Korea is going to release their results this Saturday, so big excitement and energy around that. If you are, folks should look at Reflac, ITAC. There's a whole bunch. I think we can talk more about the scene right now, but basically my passion is that 1 or 2 great aquascapes a year that are going to be featured in the international contest. Let's go for the gold. That's kind of my attitude when it comes to the hobby.
Cool. How did you first become interested in keeping fish and keeping aquariums?
Oh, well, I think like a lot of your viewers and like a lot of people in the hobby in general, like I kept fish as a kid. I always loved animals. I was kind of one of those walking encyclopedia nerd types that couldn't shut up about animals as a kid. Now, you know, we can recap and find friends like us. Like were you guys ever like that as little kids? Like want to spout off lots about this or that reptile or bug, but none of your friends or parents want to hear it. But now that we're grown up, so we have the internet, we can find like-minded nerds and geek out as much as we want. That's kind of what I was like when it comes to the fish hobby as a little kid too. But what really brought me back to the hobby after kind of growing out of it in middle school and early high school was like I've always been an artist, and I did painting as a little kid. I had a mentor named Hiroshi Tagami who was a landscape painter, probably the most famous painter to come out of Hawaii, my hometown. And the first time I saw a planted aquarium, it was in a small pet shop in Kahala, my hometown in Honolulu. And I was like blown away. I was like, purling rhesia, brilliantly colored plants. The fish looked healthier than I'd ever seen in any aquarium up to that point. Just like, you know, rams and guppies and tetras that were just flushed. I was like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. It's like painting, except everything is alive and I just can't take my eyes off of it. I got to do this. And so like I had all of Takashi Amano's books a month after that. It took me many years after high school to like really rekindle and get into where I wanted to be in terms of serious in the aquascaping. You know, I can imagine like many of your, like you need a home base, you need a place to stay, you need a fish room essentially, right? But once I was there, I was like, okay, it's time to get serious. Let's do it.
Well, that's very inspirational on how going one place just kickstarted that inspiration, which I think is pretty cool. Can you tell us what your first aquarium setup was like?
Oh, I mean, like as a little kid, I had a 10-gallon tank with, you know, guppies and tetras and whatnot, and even a ceramic turtle that I had made. But the last year in high school, when I decided that I rekindled my interest in the aquarium hobby and wanted to do it again, I had like a 5-gallon tank and a 10-gallon tank and a 3-gallon tank just like strewn around my room, mostly with Java moss and whatever like Rotella shreds or Java ferns wouldn't die on me, and like whatever rocks I could find from my backyard, you know.
Yeah, I've made a few scapes myself using rocks from the back garden.
You know, my most recent aquascape uses almost all wood that I found locally, like in and around, or even some pieces thrown out behind my kids, my school. You know, the landscapers like chopped it off and threw it out. I was like, okay, I'm using this. It's mine.
Yeah. That's one thing as fish keepers, you always find yourself looking at wood and leaves and rocks anytime you're walking about, and it's like everything's free landscape.
Yeah. So I had a teacher named Takaki Fukada, who's a 2-time world champion, my very close friend and mentor when I was living in Japan. And he always told me, the best materials look for you. It's like you're looking for them. If you pay attention and you have your antenna up and you're thinking about what you want to do, the materials find the aquascaper. And it could even be some twigs on the ground, like you said.
Yeah.
It could even be like just like the type of lava rock that I eventually used, and in most of my early works, like when I got world rank 5 in 2018 and world rank 15 in 2019. Those 2 scapes used rocks that my wife was like driving us around on a family vacation, and I was like, stop the car right now. I just saw, landscaping yard. We got to stop. We got to go back. And then like, just like the crisp plate lava that we found in that like landscaping yard out in, rural Japan. It's like amazing. And that type of rock, those types of pieces like carried me all throughout my early competitive aquascaping career.
Yeah. It's strange that you say that the material finds you, because you could have something like a layout in your mind and you're looking for a certain type of rock for that. And whilst you're looking, you'll see something completely different, and a new idea just pops right into your head and you're like locked on, and that is it. That's what you're doing. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not the only one that's had a similar vibe of driving somewhere, gotta either check that out or stop at that shop I haven't, and been through that entire process and just discovering what could be unearthed, as it were.
And normal people find it absolutely bizarre, right?
Oh yeah. There's definitely a few piles of things in my yard, and my wife just rolls her eyes every time we sort of discuss it, or going out for a walk and, oh, what's that? What are you doing? Just keep walking.
Oh my God. That's the greatest thing about my recent move from a small apartment in Tokyo to like a rented house in New York. It's just having a backyard, like having a place to like dump stuff and rinse it with a hose or store stuff. It's just like my quality of life has gone up exponentially from that, compared to when my wife was complaining that we had no empty space on our really tiny outdoor a deck outside of the apartment.
Yeah, like a balcony.
Yeah, exactly.
So excuse me. Oh, we're good. Cool. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
At what point did you sort of discover aquascaping? How did that kind of feel for you, that whole process of getting involved in that?
So, as I mentioned, like my first experience with aquascaping was in person. I know there are a lot of folks, like Jeff Senske is a very popular voice here in America, and he always talks about early photography from aquascapes is what really got him. And I feel like there's a lot of folks like that, people who run into like the AGA contest or the International Aquatic Planet Layout, like the big contest aquascape photos. Hopefully mine have also inspired some into the hobby as well. But otherwise, he's just in fish magazines or whatnot. But for me, the first interaction was in person. And how do you actually do that? It's like a whole new learning curve to get into. And at the time, there wasn't really like a whole lot of, actually at the time, this was about in 2003, 2004. I think like most of our go-to were books, right? So I picked up a few books about aquarium keeping and fish keeping and plant keeping at the bookstore that was available at the time. And eventually finding Amano-san's books, which were like the one physical resource, right?
Yeah.
That really showed a higher level of artistry beyond just like essentially a plant catalog inside of a book. I think the story that Takashi Amano told in the 3 volumes of Nature Aquarium World, I really talk about the first volume of Nature Aquarium World, where he talked about his personal anecdotes, the personal stories behind the aquascapes.
Yeah.
So that book, Garasu no Naka no Daishizen, or The Great Nature Inside of Glass, I think set up the hobby for what it wanted to be, not only like in terms of art, but in like a journey. You almost have to, I almost feel like the brilliance of that book was that it sold a tale of romance. Like it's an adventure, it's a journey, like going out and discovering nature, coming back and learning from it, building it, having that conversation between you and the aquarium, and I guess having a deeper emotional experience, which is what we're always trying to recreate at the higher level of competition. Like not just how do I grow plants and fish well, but how do I try to, through my work, give the viewer a deeper story and a deeper emotional connection to what I'm trying to feel and enjoy through my passion and my art for the hobby. It's like, I think that, there's all sorts of fun niche hobbies inside of our bigger hobby. Like one of my favorite YouTubers is Ants Canada, because I just love the stories that he tells about bugs and like warfare going on, and this or that character or creature coming into or out of the story that he has in his terrariums. And like I like watching terrarium guys and saltwater guys for the same reason. There's just different hobbies and different aspects, and even in plant aquariums. Have anyone seen like the Japanese giant robot models inside of aquariums? Yeah. So like, I mean, there's so many different aspects of human experience that we could bring to the aquarium. But with this story that Takashi Yamano created of focusing on nature, I think he really clicked on a nerve. It's something that's core to a lot of people, through a lot of people's, existence and interaction with the world around them, with the lives they lead. Nature is all around us. It is us. It's a part of us. And using the aquarium as an outlet to reach that deeper connection, and the aquarium as a format of art that's different from painting, that's different from photography, because it lives with you and it's living like you. It's its own romance. It's its own experience, I think.
Yeah, that's a very fair answer, and I agree for the best part of that. And as humans, I think we're kind of getting taken away from nature, and then having the ability to recreate some of it, even in this glass box, is often enough to kind of feel grounded and back with that feeling, which I think is quite a cool aspect of aquarium keeping.
Exactly. And this is actually like kind of partially why my hobby focused so much on the freshwater side rather than the saltwater side. Not that, I mean, part of it is just that that's the format that Takashi Yamano created. But I feel like with a saltwater aquarium, you're getting a window into a different world. It's like the ocean is a place where we don't belong inherently as, human beings, but we're getting a window into a new secret place that we can discover, which is like the coral reef or other types of environments you could create. But, and you could say the same about some, freshwater planted tanks as well. If you're like really creating a biotope, none of us are going to very few of us are going to experience a real black water biotope in our day-to-day life, for instance. But the elements of like plants, freshwater plants, which are like angiosperms, they're seeded plants, forest, mountain theme, swamp, rivers, they're still much more closer to the human experience. So it's tapping on, instead of new discovery, more like a feeling of nostalgia. And nostalgia runs super deep into the human psyche, I think, which is why it's easy to make a deep emotional connection that way.
Very much so. You've mentioned Amano being a very early influence. Was there any other influences that you had in your early days, or significant mentors, which you've already mentioned as well?
No, I mean, of course, the most founding group to me is the Tokyo Aquascaping Union, which I'm still a member of. Takayuki Fukada and Masashi Ono being like the primary founding aquascapers of that group. And Noriyuki Shito, who actually is a person who's not really well known outside of Japan, but he owns a shop in Tokyo that originally launched the Tokyo Aquascaping Union. He actually trained a lot of the early members, and he was my early hands-on teacher as well. But he told me, I think like the hardest part about getting into the hobby was deciding to do it, like just deciding to do it at the very beginning, because it's a big investment. I understand for everyone trying to get in the hobby now, there's a lot of financial barriers. There's a lot of just things that make it not easy to do and to dedicate yourself to. And, I was voicing my concerns about these things to Shito-san. But he's like, Steven, you're like looking at Takayuki Fukada, a world champion. You're looking at, Masashi Ono, a two-time second place in the world, maybe the most decorated aquascaper in the world, just for like plates and prizes and awards. And you're saying that you want to compete on that level. Like, your concerns are normal, but you're not setting a goal that's normal. If you want to do this, they are perverts, and you will have to become one too if you want to cross the line. Are you a pervert or not? Give me an answer now. It was essentially what we got to in Japanese when we were having that conversation. And so I took that home. I stewed over it. And I mentioned that, ultimately my teacher, my most close interacted teacher is Takayuki Fukada. But of all the things that Fukada-san taught me, we talked about philosophy, and we talked about shadows, and we talked about emotional story. We talked about aquascaping technique, many things I learned. But the number one most important thing that I learned from being with Fukada-san was the sheer difference in effort between him and where I was at the time. Because when I visited his fish room, Fukada-san doesn't really show his fish room to the public that often, but there's two contest tanks, 150 centimeter. Then there's a 120 centimeter tank that's just there to grow plants out. Then there is a 90 centimeter tank and a 75 centimeter tank and 360 centimeter tanks. And he has an entire wall of 5 gallons where he just breeds and cares for his favorite fish. And that doesn't, I'm not even getting into all the balconies where he has like little like plants growing immersed and things and little samples of things that he collected and wanted to play with. The man told me that, I said, geez, how long does it take to maintain all of this stuff? And he's like, honestly, Steven, I spend 4 to 5 hours a day on average, sometimes 8 hours on maintenance. And so obviously most of us cannot do that. I can't do that. I have 2 kids. I have a full-time job outside of aquascaping. That's not going to be me, right? But it showed me like a sheer difference in dedication, in passion, in like, that is what, if you're looking at like the world's top 5 aquascapers, if you're looking at those who get into the top 10 of the international competitions, you're talking about people who look at the entire 1 year of resource in between competitions, say, I'm going to use all of it. The entire 1 year of resource, that's mine. I need to use all of it because I need to, if I'm really serious about getting to the top. Like, if it takes me 6 or 7 months just to think through my inspiration before I even start moving any rocks or wood around, and it takes me 3 months after that to get the wood and rock perfect before we even get to filling the tank, I'm going to do it because, I'm that serious.
Mm-hmm. And that's the difference.
How did your skills develop? Obviously, you are not likely to have been incredible for the first time you tried all of this. How has that evolved and how has that worked for you?
Yeah, so between 2017 and 2018, I went from world rank 525 to world rank 5 in the International Aquatic Plant Layout Contest.
Not bad.
So I would say that the only way to go in there, and to be honest, like, I've taken my fair share of losses too. In the past few years, I've been having it kind of rough in the IPLC world. This year, I'm going to be competing in the other contests primarily. So definitely looking forward to the announcement from KIAC this weekend. And also I'm competing in CIPS, the Chinese International Aquatic Plant Layout Contest. But like, you got to take your hit. You got to take, like, it isn't all fun and it isn't all victories. Like, you take your lumps too. So I'd say that the thing that helped me to grow and grow quickly was that, first of all, I had decided I'm going to do it. It was in my guts. I had, that decision making was there after I saw Fukada-san's room. I'm not backing off. I'm going to be able to look at myself in the mirror at the end of it and say, I did everything I could. And then, after failure, get up, and also not be afraid to take risks. Like, it's interesting, but if you looked at my first 120 centimeter tank that I used for competition, it was just a standard 88, 120, 45, 45. But like, my friends would give me a whole lot of, I get made fun of a lot for all the scratches on the glass for that tank. I was working with lava rock. I thought it was very good strategically because it connects really easily. It's light. It's, for all those reasons, I recommend lava rocks as a genre of rocks for beginners to use. If you can get a whole lot of it for cheap, do it. And then don't care too much about scratches if you're serious about contests, because honestly, like, it's going to take you a while to even get to the level where you can get into the top 100. And the scratches don't matter at all for judging, unless you're like talking about really the top 5 in the contest. But like, they're going to disappear when it comes to that final photo, that one final photo that you're putting your time to get in. And the more important thing is that you're not afraid of failure and you're not afraid to try. So that's what all the scratches on my glass represent. Like, I'm just going to go in. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to let any mental barriers stop me from trying what I think is best. And if I put it in and it sucks, or if I spend like 3 days building the hardscape only to sit down with my buddies over the weekend over some beers and like, oh my God, Steve, what were you doing? This is terrible. Rip all this out. Here's a new lot. Like, Fukada-san used to joke to me that coming out of a drinking session, he would hope that his art would just, we'd all print our work in progress on like a piece of paper and then bring it and then hand them around, and everyone gives their opinion and talks about what's right, what's wrong, what's working, what's not. And Fukada-san said, I would hate it if I came out of the session and there'd be no red scratching, no red crossing out anywhere on my work. Everyone said it was amazing, because I'd feel nervous about whether it was really on the right path, if we were really figuring out the right. And then getting in there and hearing the cracking of super glue as I take out one of the biggest, most important pieces, like 2 months ahead of the photo shoot, like, I almost find it therapeutic. That's got to be like the crazy place where you're in.
That's,
Wow.
it's good that you can all kind of come together and critique each other with confidence, because if you've just got your own vision, your own opinion, and your own input to it, then it's approaching it in a very narrow way, because you're not judging it. So what you like and what you think is great may not be what the panel enjoys. So getting your own kind of panel together to do that is probably one of the best approaches I've ever heard.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, even if you are really confident in your abilities, even if you have reason to be confident in your abilities, like, when you're working on it, there's just times where you don't get it. Like, you don't see the mistakes, you don't see the problems, just because it's what you've been working on and you're so used to seeing it as it is, right? But like my most recent aquascape, a month out, I was like, God, I have no idea what to do. I'm just so exhausted. There's so much work and family and getting used to my new life in New York. I have no idea how the heck this aquascape is going to turn out. And I don't know how to fix it either. But I just tried shooting it to a couple of my buddies who are also in the contest, Josh Sim, for instance. And 5 seconds later, this kind of sucks. Why don't you like add in a piece of wood there? And I was like, looking at it, and then I was like, oh my God, that solves all the problems. I'm like, I thought this was like kind of a disaster situation. I had no idea how to fix it. But you know, like I get it, because when other people show me their works and I'm just like, and you have fresh eyes, you're completely new to it, and you're just like, why the hell did they do it this way? And it just like comes naturally. So I looked at it again and I said, yeah, and I put that one piece in, and just from that, adding that one piece in, like my confidence boosted immensely. I was like, okay, well, if that's there and the balance is set up right there, then I can make this adjustment, that adjustment, and then like the whole scape came together at the end. And like I showed it to Josh again. He was like, oh my God, what did you do? It became a different aquascape. It's like so much better than what we were looking at a month ago. Thank God.
So do you guys meet once a month during the lead up to the contest? Or is it...
We used to, I mean, like, it depends. So, you know, people's energies wax and wane. And I'm also kind of like in a period where I'm being more independent from Fukada-san. I also haven't been able to work with him really this year, because I said that I was going to dedicate myself mostly to the non-IPLC contests.
Yeah.
He's a judge in almost all of them. So, you know, but like, I have friends in the Tokyo Aquascaping Crucible, the TAC, which is the North American group. I have buddies that I bounce ideas off of there. Usually go to private to a few members that I've known for a long time. Also, like I mentioned, sometimes there's international aquascapers who I've made friends with who I'll show my work to. But I guess I've been more independent in recent years. That said, like, I think the team setting is really great. And like in the midst of our most intense years at TAU, because we were in the top 10 of the IPLC every year from 2010 to 2022. Actually,
Wow.
2010 to 2020. Yeah, every there was a TAU member. Sorry, a TAU member in the top 27 every year between those periods. The top 27 of the IPLC are called like the honor ranks. So we had someone in the honor ranks or higher ranks every year for those 10 years. And during that period, it was like definitely meet once a month or twice a month, and maybe even do work online. But really, the best setting was in person. Now, not all groups can have that luxury. Like FACT is the French aquascaping group that did really, really well in certain earlier periods of the IPLC. They haven't been as aggressive or active as of late, but during their heyday, they were still like spread out over France. There was no way that they were going to get together very easily, but they made, you know, the time, at least they're in the same time zone, right? So they made the commitment to meet online as often as possible. And lo and behold, while they were doing it, you know, they were putting out really incredible aquascapes.
Yeah. I see your shirt. You've got the Aquascapers Collective logo there.
Yeah.
Does that help getting criticism and help meeting in person, or does that still kind of?
Yeah, the Aquascapers Collective is the North American, well, I'd say US and Canada Discord channel and group. We do tutoring, and there's general chat and so on. I'm part of what's called the Crucible of the TAC, meaning like a core set of members who are very serious about the aquascape and committed to critiquing each other and improving. And I'd say that, unfortunately, I haven't been as active in there as I was in the past, just because, like I said, I'm getting used to getting my footing in my new setting. But considering that I am in the US right now, I want to make that participation more active and strong. So I'm going to get to that for sure. And I still talk to like a core set of members in there, like Hip Hong and Jeff Mielke, quite frequently.
Good.
I've had a few things come up during this, so I just want to work through it. How does the team work during competitions? Are you all submitting individual stuff, or are you submitting as a team, or you as a team, as in you just referring to each other, helping each other, working through things with each other, but all individual.
Yeah, it's a purely individual contest, but just like helping each other to work together. One piece of culture I tried to bring to both groups, or like something that I learned in the Tokyo Aquascaping Union, TAU in Japan, was like every year we start the conversation off with, well, pick a number. What's your number? In other words, like, what rank do you want to get next year? And then from there, all advice comes from that goal in mind. Because, like, if you tell me that your goal is to be in the top 10, then my advice is going to be totally different from if your goal is to be in the top 50 versus the top 100 versus the top. Actually, after 100, it doesn't really matter because everything below the 100 in the International Quad Plant Layout Contest is just handled by a steering committee, and it's not exactly objective. So that's one thing to pay. I think anyone who's looking at their work at the IPLC, just remember that if you're outside the top 100, it doesn't matter if you were ranked 130 versus 560. It's pretty much the same rank. So the very minimum goal then would be to be in the top 100, right? Because at least that makes sense. You're past the steering committee. You're going to be judged by the international judging panel. But there's a different set of keys or criteria that you would need to get in there versus the top 50 versus the top 27 versus top 7 versus world champion. And the rigor and harshness of the critique that to follow, if you're a Tokyo Aquascaping Union member in our heyday, this would, like, the common sense would be you're going to face a different level of critique depending on what number you tell us. If you tell us you want to be world rank 1, prepare for like a full assault. Like, no, nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. We're going to be brutal because that's what's going to take to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that approach, to be totally fair. This is where I want to be. This is my goal. Let's make this work, and let's bounce ideas to make this work. I think that's a fantastic approach for competition.
Yeah. Instead of people just putting you down because they want to lift you up by being helpful. So it's a positive approach, definitely.
Yeah. So it's not that, because like even if you want to reach the top 100, or at this point, like in some years, like there's almost always like 2,000 participants or so, and if they only have room for like 1,000 in the book, you're not gonna get a picture of just like some goldfish swimming in front of like hornwort in that top 1,000, right? In the old days when there were fewer, you might actually in the back pages. That would be fun to see, but not anymore. So if you're in the book at all, then you're probably beyond the stage of a casual hobbyist. You're not someone who like, I had the funnest experience like coming back home and like buying some black mollies because I bought like 8 black mollies from a local pet store because black mollies eat algae. They're great algae eaters for folks who don't know that. But I had these 8 little fish, and the staff of the store were like, "Oh, how big is your aquarium? Do you mind if we ask you how many gallons do you have in your aquarium?" Because they're asking because they don't want me to put the 8 mollies in like a little 2.5 gallon and kill them all. And I'm like, "Oh, well, I have a 70-gallon aquarium." They're like, "Sorry, sir, but we have to ask everyone. It's store policy." This is good. That's good policy. I'm like, that's an improvement over like the terrible days of big box pet stores. But if you're in that top 1,000 in the aquascape, if you're deciding to like submit at all, you're not that category of hobbyist anymore. So if you can grow plants at all, if you can grow healthy plants at all, and I'm setting a very low bar there because, quite frankly, my husbandry is not the greatest in this hobby either. But that said, like, you're not a normal hobbyist. You're not like you're not the 90%, and you're probably you're probably at least the top 30%. In which case, we don't have to. Maybe the best way to think about it is we don't have to coach your ego, because just being in this conversation, just being in this hobby at all, means that you should already feel a certain degree of confidence, because most people don't get to the point where they can grow plants in a box and they can keep fish healthy. And at that point, like any plants in a box with healthy fish is a beautiful thing. That's the entry point. Like, if you can grow healthy plants in a box and just put in some rocks, or not even rocks, you just need the plants and the fish. That's already, a beautiful thing to behold, a healthy planted aquarium. So your ego should already be, you should feel confident in yourself just to get there. So going beyond that, how far do you want to go? How high do you want to reach? Like, the great thing about aquascaping as a hobby, it's like there's an infinite degree of more to learn, whether it's about plant husbandry, or getting this one species to turn a certain color, or even survive at all, or like getting that group of fish to breed, or get into breeding colors, or learn how to craft with this type of stone or that type of stone, like perspective, shadow, scale, depth, woodwork. Like, there's photography, editing, video. Like, you could go in an infinite number of directions, and like there's an infinite number of ways to express yourself, whether it's just like a beta bowl in your living room, or it's like becoming a giant YouTube channel, or it's becoming a competitive aquascaper. Like, there's an infinite number of roads you could take, and more than any one lifetime could handle in terms of expertise you could pursue. So don't take any slight from like saying that you're not a top aquascaper, or this aquascape sucks, or like even if you are a previous like top aquascaper, this one work you made sucks. Don't take offense, because there's a lifetime to learn, and more than several lifetimes worth of knowledge out there to get. There is no such thing as a perfect master. There's always more that you could do.
Exactly. And I think as long as you accept that and are willing to take advice in any form, then you're going to grow. So
exactly,
the day you decide, I know it all, or I don't want to hear your opinion, or I disagree with that, then that's when you stop developing your skills, and that's when you may as well just walk away from the hobby.
Is the aquascaping competitions, are they considered sport?
Yeah, well, I'd say they're contests, right? They're art contests, just like we have lots of other art contests: photography, painting, whatever.
Yeah. So that mean aquascapers are athletes?
Well, I don't know if you would call them I do. I mean, like, there's a physical aspect to it, right? Especially for some of these very rock-intensive aquascapes. Like, I would say that part of my confidence does come from the fact that I was a wrestler in high school, martial artist, wrestling, judo. I have a fighting spirit, if you know what I mean. And so, but there is a very physical aspect to that. I'd say that that could be one reason why you don't there's a heavy skew in the hobby towards men, and then the women in the hobby, like, it wouldn't help to bulk up in some cases. Like, it depends on how heavy you want to go with the biggest rocks in your aquarium. But then again, wood is a lot lighter, and we have a lot of wood aquascapers at the top of the hobby, like Josh Sim, Shaq Rial, the Indonesian and Malaysian guys. Well, obviously they're Malaysian, but then the whole Indonesian hobby is dominated by folks who are just really good at crafting driftwood, right? A lot of times you can't find the most types of beautiful rock in the world in Malaysia, is what I've heard from them. But even And actually, I would recommend to my own North American aquascapers, if you're serious, probably wood is the place to start, just because we have American manzanita. And if you live on the West Coast, especially, you know, get in touch with Tom Barr, get in touch with whatever supplier you can find, because we have our own native wellspring of fantastic hardscape in the form of manzanita. And you work with what you got, right? The Malaysian guys have worked with what they got. And even without rocks, they've showed themselves to be incredible aquascapers. That said, I try to be flexible because, like, you know, my teacher, Fukada-san, purposely did the practice of switching between rock and wood every year, going back and forth, because he didn't want to be stuck in either mindset. He wanted to expand his horizons. For myself, I haven't been very disciplined about it in the past few years, but I try to switch in between terrestrial and aquatic themes every year. Like this aquascape is going to be like river or lake inside, something really aquatic, something that's, you know, obviously an underwater theme. This aquascape the next year is going to be more of a terrestrial one, mountain, forest, whatever. I try to go back and forth just so I don't get pigeonholed into one mindset.
Like the looking glass of the maples is clearly like a recreation of a scene that was a photograph. So, yeah.
Exactly. So I broke my rule in the last few years because I did 2 terrestrial in a row, but this year, aquatic, baby.
Yeah.
Underwater.
So we've had a few questions from the floor, so just bring them up.
Well, before that, do you guys mind if I go get water real quick? I like noticed that my face is drying out. I'll be right back.
So it's quite interesting discussing being pigeonholed to rock or wood, because in our daily video that we do yesterday's question was, when you're setting up hardscape, do you prefer using rock or wood? And a lot of people came back with a combination. I'm almost exclusively, I hate rock. I like playing with wood personally myself.
I would prefer rock.
Would you?
I like the feel of rock when I'm doing it, and I don't know. I just something about fish and the contrast with the rock textures just does it for me. I just don't have any luck with the wood. That's
look at us talking like we're good at aquascaping. I just put pieces of wood and we can hope for the best.
Yeah, we just know the fancy words, don't we?
Yeah. If you're in the comments section and you've got any questions for Steven, please don't hesitate to ask them. We are starring them at our end so we can get through to them. It is also much appreciated. And if you are here, please give the stream a like and say hello and all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah. What do we got here? No comments in here overly relevant. Just general chit-chat, which is fantastic. Look at me, just mumble, rumble, continuing on. All right, we are back.
Hey guys, I'm back, and I have cough drops and water, so we should be good.
Cool. All right, we'll bring up a few of the comments. Stephen has said that smashing rocks can be pretty labor intensive. I think I was referring to whether or not it's a sport or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it depends. If you hear any background noise, guys, it's because my kids were having a play date, and I think their dad is here to pick them up now. Anyway, so yeah, rock smashing is labor intensive, and that's another place where I'm really glad that I have a backyard now, and or even just a driveway, right? A place where shrapnel can fly and no one cares about it. And it depends on what types of rocks you're working with too. Obviously, like if you're working with something like dragonstone or lava rock, it's a lot easier. And I found this year, I worked with Seiru this year, and it wasn't hard either to do a lot of crafting. I feel like though there are some rocks where it's impossible, right? Like for instance, Hakkai stone or Pohai stone is like, sorry, Hakkai or Pahai. It's the that is like the hardest rock to work with in all of aquascaping, because it's the heaviest and also because it's impossible to break. So you really have to work with the character of each individual stone.
Outside in, Aquatics would like to know: do you have a favorite light?
Favorite light? I do have to plug the the Life Aqua products. I work with Max Light and beautiful colors. I really like it. The Prime Pro EX is the one that I have over my aquarium right now. But I also have UNS's Titans too. I'd say that there's different. I like different lights for different things. Okay, so the Titans are cool because they're very light and easy to work with. I find it very easy to remove them for a photo shoot, for instance. But but Life Aqua's products, what really makes them incredible is the natural colors. They're just really close to sunlight. That's not what I'd want for every aquascape, because sometimes I do like a more blue tone for like an underwater situation. But recently, like Andy's company has been working on getting you whatever spectrum you want in their products. So and keep in mind, I do have to say that I work with them, so keep that in mind what I'm saying. But still, I have to plug it, and I think I really like working with the lights and the different options for controlling the timer and the colors. And those lights are on stands; they're not pin lights. So I'd say that having them on stands is cool because I have like this year I was a bit lazy and figure out what I was going to do for my photo contest for my my ultimate photography setup. So what I ended up doing is just like duct taping my strobes onto the Life Aqua lights, which are on legs. You know, so just like, okay, because they're on legs, this is like a platform. I'm just like duct taping all of my strobes on top of the aquarium lights, and then I can get the flash that I want at the angle that I want. And yeah, that worked out brilliantly. For those who watch my YouTube channel, you know that I fix lots and lots of problems with duct tape. There's a dark side, light side, and it holds the universe together. It's like Star Wars.
Whatever works, works. Cool. Another question, or sorry, more of a comment. Silent Pool is one of Pure and Shrimple's favorite escapes of all time.
Thank you. I'm really, that really makes me happy because I do feel like I went overboard with that one in terms of color. If you go check out the Master Skill series on my channel, like the last 2 videos have been about the techniques used in Silent Pool. So definitely go check it out. I wanted to recreate the feeling of like an alpine lake. So that was kind of a stretch for me, I gotta say, because I'm not from Germany, I'm not from Europe. It's not my backyard, and yet I was just so inspired by some of the underwater footage from that area that I just had to give it a shot. And I'd say that the lesson from Silent Pool, besides reining it in a bit, or knowing when to rein it in a bit, I think like that scape was for me one of my favorites because I went all out. I poured my heart and soul into it, and I think that I really love that work too. I think it's special and unique. But for me, it was the lesson of when to rein it in. Even so, the greatness of that aquascape, I think, is learning how to identify what it is that you care about from nature. It's not just about picking a theme like alpine lake or river or forest, mountain. Like the deeper, more interesting thing is where you can get to the next level of why do I care about that theme? What is it in that theme that makes me emotionally connected to it, that makes me attached to it, that captures my imagination? When you're at the level of, instead of I want to do a lake, I want to do a mountain, I want to do a forest, it's like, why? And when you can answer that why question, in the case of Silent Pool, is like the loneliness and stillness of the cold pond, like almost blues, like blues music, touching your soul at a deep level with that coolness and coldness. When you're at that level of thinking about the art, then it means a lot more to you, and hopefully it means a lot more to your audience. It means a lot to me that you like that work.
Mm. I was just sitting here thinking, has someone ever done something like Elisa's More and just put one rock or one plant into a aquarium and submitted it as like a real abstract art form?
Like Masashi Ono, who is one of my teachers, he's definitely a Zen aquascaper. You one of the greats of the hobby. But he once gave an assignment to another TAU member named Toshifumi Watanabe. Watanabe-san is not a well-known aquascaper these days, but he really should be. Like, if you're into learning more about the history of the hobby and like great scapers who have come and sometimes are less active, I'd say that Watanabe-san still competes from time to time, but he's less active. Like, still, one of his works was picked by Takashi Amano as the greatest in the world, his personal pick one year. And he's been in the top 15 before and the top 7 before. So if you can, go hunt down some of Toshifumi Watanabe's old aquascapes. He's another member of the TAU. He's really great. Anyway, Ono-san gave him an assignment for fun. Try to make an iwagumi with just one rock. And so it's interesting because Watanabe's whole thing is using Monten stone to make these dramatic canyonscapes. Like, he'll go all the way from like the biggest in boulders down to like the tiniest mountains, like super, that must be like miles and miles away. Mountains that are just like beyond the horizon. That was his heyday, was when the hobby was in its peak heyday of scaling out diorama and finding like the max impression of size and scale and depth that you could get. And so for him to instead do an iwagumi with just one rock, that was a really funny assignment, you know? So he just had to pick like the coolest one Monten stone in his collection. That's the father stone. And then what do you do with the rest? So his answer was actually really cool. He used a number of species, orange species. It's not coming to my mind right now, but there's this one species of more reddish stem plant that still hugs the ground and makes it into itself into like a foreground plant. What he did was he used that plant to simulate the other stones in the iwagumi to be like the secondary. He grew them into groups that represented the secondary stone and the steishi. Steishi means, in Japanese, means the thrown away stone, or like the one stone you throw off to the side to change the balance of the overall aquascape. For those who are interested in Go, in like the Japanese game of Go, steishi is also a stone that you sacrifice in order to get the bigger strategy together. That's another way you can think about it in aquascaping. But those positions, you know, Watanabe-san knows his stuff when it comes to rocks. He knows where placements should be. So to get the balance, while also in the restriction of only one stone, he had to figure out how to use plants in order to create that balance. And his answer was like filling out the positioning with red plants and using green and white plants to guide the eye otherwise through the aquascape. It's a really great work if you can find it. I don't think it was in the top 100, so it'll be a hard one to search. I can try posting it to my Instagram if I can dig it up from my photo collection, because I wouldn't have that one because of an online positioning, but because Watanabe-san might have sent it to me for one of our old drinking sessions. So if I can dig it up, I'll promise to post it to Instagram and talk about it. Or maybe I'll ask him to send it to me. But that's a really great one. For once, even though it's a skate with one stone, I think he used like 10 different plants. And he just felt like, I just needed tools at my disposal to move the eye through the... But at the same time, it's interesting because out of all of his works, I'd have to say that's the one where he really showed off the beauty of plants and his excellence in husbandry technique to the greatest degree. So the plants are beautiful, the composition is amazing, and the balance that he struck with just plants, given that restriction, makes it a great work in my mind.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's something that's starting to stick out. Like when you're talking, Stephen, when you're talking about your mentors and your teachers, the way you speak about them, it's almost I mean, and it may well be, but it's like you went to university to study aquascaping by the way that you speak about it. And I've never heard anybody else. Everybody says, "Oh, I've got a mentor," but it genuinely means somebody that they kind of deep dive into online. But for you, it sounds more like it's been a lifestyle, and like a university education. It's phenomenal to hear it. Like, I mean, is it like that? You know, it's almost like you took an apprenticeship with these people.
It would be funny to have like a university for aquascaping.
Yeah,
I'd say that I was very fortunate. I was blessed to have great people around me and to meet, and through them to meet even more great people, other aquascapers around the world, like to call folks like Josh Sim or Juan Puchades or name your guy. I probably know him at this point. Matthew Maines, just having great friends who are into the hobby and share the same passion. But I think like even in the Tokyo Aquascaping Union, a lot of it was self-directed. Folks can give you hints and folks can steer you in the right direction. They can give you their mindset behind it. And I'd say like there are like a million different topics. Like, for instance, we all get each other. We all talk enough to understand like what the different folks value. Like Ono-san is all about fish, right? Making aquascapes that center the fish and learn from nature. Those are the things that really inspire him. But when he helped me with my photo shoot, there was a time where he looked at one of my giant dioramas and he's like, "You're missing a rock over there, Steven." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He just like, "Here, give me your little pebble box." It's like, "Okay, here." And he grabbed one pebble, like, "Yeah, probably this one will work." And he stuck it there. And after he stuck it there, I was like, "Oh my God, that work is so much better now than it was a moment ago." I'm like, "Holy crap." And he's like, "You have to be able to see this stuff on your own, you know." So what I'm trying to get at is that even though it's not his wheelhouse, he understands all of the big, like the hardcore hardscaping and composition concepts that are really Fukada-san's wheelhouse. And Fukada-san gets like the fish-centric nature of storytelling and the learn from nature photography mindset that Ono-san is in. It's not his wheelhouse, but he exercises it all the time and can talk to it, right? That said, if you get either of them in a like a speaking gig, in a chance to talk about what they want to talk about, I can tell you Fukada-san is going to go to his wheelhouse, big impact, composition, so on and so forth, storytelling. Ono-san is going to go to his wheelhouse of like learn from fish, learn from nature, etc., etc. And yet, like in either of those realms or other realms, because I also have my own approach, right? Like I would like to dig up and learn everything I possibly can about a theme, from the practical to the impractical, surrounding story. Like if it like learn about the town, learn about the people, learn about try to watch as much footage as possible, and even like try to meditate before going into those study sessions. There's just like a lot of different lenses you can look at different topics from, but I'd say that most of it is self-directed. Like these folks didn't give me like hours-long lectures about this stuff. We had, drinking sessions, and I learned mostly through, I would say, sensibilities, like what feels right or doesn't feel right, based on discussion, right? It's more like establishing a new common sense through those discussions rather than is like building up practical knowledge, like learning from a textbook. Yeah. Still, learning how to be self-directed in what interests you in the hobby, and then learning that new degree of what is the common sense of this community in terms of hard work, in terms of self-study, in terms of like how we value and look at an aquascape. Those things will allow you to self-direct and self-learn to a deeper degree and to a more interesting degree than you can without that sensibility. And I'd say that meeting them definitely was the kicking point to that, because I said that my passion hobby really started in 2004, 2005 when I was in college, but I never really, by myself or on online forums like plantedtank.net or Aquascaping World or Aquatic Plant Central. You guys made up my childhood as an aquascaper. It was a great place to learn how to grow plants and keep fish going. But I have to say, every time I wanted to talk about art, no one ever did. And so, like, I wasn't able to grow until I met that Tokyo Aquascaping Union community.
What I've taken from this is we've spoken to several aquascapers now, and they've all kind of discussed their approach in one way or another. And you've discussed your approach one way or another, but with other people's approach, and like everyone's got their own eyes, mindset, way they're going to do it. It's all totally different, but it all comes out as this beautiful piece of aquarium work. And despite you having a different approach to this person, you can still talk about it and still get to the way you guys need to go on different levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting way that my brain at least has kind of unraveled all of that.
Yeah, so I think it's like learning that shared common sense of the competitive aquascaping community. I mentioned that. Yeah,
that's really opened my mind a little bit there, which is really cool.
I think another way to look at it is that obviously it's a form of art by every possible way, and everyone especially contest aquascapers, I would regard them as artists 100%. So each artist, even in canvas or different medias, they all have their own different techniques and different approaches and preferences with different colors and things, but you all produce art at the same time. And when you categorize art for paintings, there's different types of art, but all within the same category. And I think that's what Cam's trying to say as well. It's these all come from different roads, different paths, and get to the same conclusion and produce the same form of art, obviously individual, but the same produces the same level of quality.
Just quickly, Pure and Triple says that you're replying to their comment has made their year, which is kind of cool too. As a world ranking aquascaper, how much effort or time do you put into your plant harvesting tank, and does it have a schedule to create the best looking plants for competition?
Yeah, like you do have to plan. You have to plan timing for that as well. This year I just moved and started from scratch, so I had to get my plant collection going from scratch as well. Fortunately, I had a lot of help from Ultimate Nature Systems, actually from Busey Plant, which is like affiliated with them. And
I know.
Yeah. So they sent me a lot of really great plants, and they worked with me closely on all of my different desires and but it is like, and I got some great looking specimens, so that was great. But I had to build up from scratch. Ideally, you would have a farm tank and a competition tank. My theory was I could have 2 competition tanks with the same plant set in each, and they would be each other's farm tanks. Unfortunately, I never got to that point because I'm making excuses for myself. Life is rough, guys. Life is rough. But I think that now that I've had it the first year and I've got like the plans for my first tank going bangers, I'm going to get them ready. And I have a secondary competition tank in the works right now. Actually, originally I was going to try to compete in IPLC and KIAC. I didn't get my life together, so I'm only entering the KIAC. But the other tank that I designed, I still think it's a good work. So, and it is planned to use the same set of plants as the tank that I finished. So I'm going to start bringing species over and trying to finish it, wrap it up. Might find another contest to enter in as well. But like once I get there, I'm going to have like a set of plants that I know grow well, I know work for me, and I know that I can maintain. And I'd say that is a really important foundation from which to set off on. And when you have plants growing in a farm tank, they can reach like a great state where you can just like, oh, okay, now that group looks great. I'm just going to pick that out and put it into the contest tank now, right? And inversely, without that going on, you know that your competition is. Remember how we talked about, like, you know that your competition is using the time to the best of their abilities. I know that, like, my competition is using farm tanks to the best of their abilities, and that sometimes for some folks in their work stream, they might be the type of person who only takes 2 months to bring in aquascape to its fullest. And after that point, it's going to be harder to keep it in prime condition for a photo shoot, right? Or they're aiming for that photo shoot timing in the 2.5 months. But to get that timing correct, they're leaning back on or like at least one farm tank that is, a key to not missing that timing, that you have these other plants growing on the side that are forming their own balance, making their own mature look and appearance that you can easily move over. And through enough experience of work, I know that there are some species that just look great, regardless of whether you miss the timing or not. So Swassertang is my pitch to all of those, like everyone, experienced, casual, I don't care. If you like have a bald spot in your aquarium and it's clearly not working, like, so Swassertang, which was growing in the back of your aquarium underneath all the shadow of your other species because you weren't willing to give it the time and attention it desired, you just pluck that sucker out, stick it in, and it'll look great. In 2019, I actually had one aquascape called Amanogawa that I entered it with just rock into the IPLC and took world rank 15. But I like pulled out the big rocks, put in some driftwood, entered that into IIAC, and got in the 30s for that competition. And I didn't even take my hardware out. I like left the filters and stuff in. I just wrapped all of them in some Swassertang. I'm like, okay, I'm too lazy. So I took the picture. And I was like, oh, that's great. Let's go.
So I've never heard this as Swassertang. Can you explain that?
It's not a moss. It's a liverwort. Or actually, no, never mind. It's not. I'm wrong. There's an older plant in the hobby called Pilia that is a liverwort.
Yeah.
The Swassertang looks really similar, but it's actually a baby fern, or what is it called? Ferns have a part of their life cycle where they spit out gametes, but before they actually like turn into full-grown plants, they have like this they have this in-between stage that looks like a liverwort. That's what the Swassertang is. It's just that it never gets to reproduce in your aquarium, but it grows out like a regular plant, and it's unkillable, and it's an amazing thing to have.
So is that like a round Pilia?
Yeah.
I get you.
Steven's
never heard it called that before.
Swassertang's nature's coupe.
Exactly. And of course, if you can give it that, like any plant can be better if you give it the right time and attention and care that it deserves. Mm-hmm. But with the Swassertang, you can also abuse it like crazy. You can buy it at a pet shop after it's been sitting in the back of a 5-gallon with like goldfish in the same tank. Stick that sucker in that bald spot, and it'll look better than any other plant you could have tried to get away with there.
All right. We have another question here. Azim would like to know, what is your favorite aqua soil, and do you find the ones great for CO2 tanks and plant growth, also great for algae growth, or is that just her?
Okay, so God, all these product questions are always going to get me in trouble, But I'd say that, unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of experience with different types of aqua soils. Having been in Japan, I was just using ADA the whole time. ADA is interesting because, like everywhere else, it's like a primo brand. But if you ever have the chance to live in Japan, it's like if you have a cheap brand and an expensive brand in the Japanese market, it's like the cheap brand will only be like 5% cheaper than ADA.
Oh, wow.
It's like the aquarium
expensive in Japan then as well.
Yeah. So like in other countries, you're paying primo for the ADA brand, but if you're in Japan, it's like, okay, I could buy the generic knockoff, but I could also just spend $5 more and get the ADA stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do. So most of my experience has been with ADA. This year I have used both aqua soils from Oase and from UNS. My current contest tag is UNS aqua soil, but to be perfectly honest, like I'm not such a you guys could tell from this conversation. Like I said, there's an infinite amount of depth you could go into. There's an infinite amount of learning you could do. I'm gonna be honest, folks. Like fertilizer, mechanics, and like the details of how to grow a more difficult species is not really my wheelhouse. I feel like most of my aquascapes, you can do it with easier to grow species, and they look great. I think those types of species are the foundation of the hobby. Now, so I pay a lot more attention to the breadth of my aquascape when I'm making the aquarium. In most cases, it's like water changes, CO2, light, and paying attention to the condition of the plants. Having a relationship with the aquarium. Is it a relationship where I'm engaged? Or if this week I'm just really too busy, I'm sorry, honey, I'm going to have to come back next week and give you more attention. We have that type of bond. And I look at the breadth of the aquarium, and if plants are not doing well, what do I need to correct for that? And if it is a nutrient issue, that just means fertilizing more, right? But I guess like I'm not the type of person who could give you an in-depth understanding, like a scientific understanding of what's going on in there and how the soil is working or not working. I'm just looking at my relationship with the aquarium and engaging based on what I see and what I feel like is needed. Like if I can tell that the plants are not getting enough nutrients, I'm just going to dose more, or I'm going to get root tabs or what need be. But
do you use test kits when you're doing that? Yeah. Do you test water when you think there's an imbalance, or do you just go purely on visual?
Honestly, I don't test. I mean, I've done it before, but and I've read through I've read through what Tom Barr or Dennis have published out into the world. Never clicked with me. I never got it. Sorry, guys. I just didn't get it. The ADA method of fertilization is pretty simple, right? It's like, we do water changes. And Dennis has sometimes even called this like the Asian approach to plant husbandry. It's more like feeling and breath. So you don't really need to dose macros that much because the fish food is going to give a lot of macros to the tank. You dose potassium a lot, which is what Brighty K is, right? There's almost the theory is you can almost never underdose when it comes to potassium. So you just do that. And then amp up CO2, amp up light, because those are the things that are really needed. And if you just can't get the plants to go to do well with those conditions in place, then you can add macros on top of that as needed. It's kind of the approach. So I think that's a really easy to approach. It's really easy to understand. And it's more based on feeling as opposed to like strict measurement or calculating things out. And that's what's worked for me. And this year, without too much, I used Echinodoris this year for the first time ever, and that was a really nutrient-intensive plant. And I found halfway through that it was the nutrients; they just needed more. So I started dosing like crazy. UNS spurts, also root tabs, and boom, everything came in together really great for the final photo. But I did like experiment and feel my way to that conclusion, as opposed to like measure and calculate and think things through. Maybe if I had the right mind, if I could become a Dennis or Tom Barr, I could make that happen. But that's not who I am, and so that's not what I went with.
Well, you do what you're good at, don't you?
We've got another question here. How often are you doing water changes?
So I'd say like for maintenance, like to maintain an aquarium once a week is fine. For most contest tanks, like the first 2 weeks are every day, maybe 2 times a day. And then I would say that sometimes it's not so much about like what percentage of the water, it's how many minutes you're running. Like you have this is the Noriyuki Sto approach to water changes, especially for early contest tag. But if things are not going well, do water changes more if necessary. And instead of what percent of the water are you changing, have both outflow and inflow of new water going on at the same time. How many minutes are you going? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour? That's kind of like that's kind of like what I've done in waterscape and in water changes in the past as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Someone here in New Zealand basically said it's not quite the same timing approach, but very similar. Change, and then it kind of finds its thing after that, so to speak.
Yeah.
Also, while you're talking, I really love the analogy of the breath of the aquarium. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Cool. That was a really cool little thought process on a glass box full of water, basically. Cool. So I've had 3 other wee topics come up while we've been talking, and I'm going to try and structure these in a logical order.
Mm-hmm.
What are the differences in the competitions that you enter?
You mean between the IAPLC, KIAC, like Aquascaping Gardeners Association? Like, what are the different contests like?
Yeah, are there different judging standards or the whole approaches to them?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest that when it came to the IAPLC and when I was really serious about trying to rank highly in it, I thought a lot about the scoring system and the balance between the different categories that they have, and who like IPLC is interesting because the judges are not aquascapers for the most part, except for like a few. Obviously Andre is there now, as is Honma-san and Adam, right? So the 3 of them are layouters, but otherwise the panel is like fish magazine folks and plant enthusiast or like an artist. I don't know. It's always an interesting mix, right? I think like in IPLC's early days, they were trying to like recreate some of the types of structures you would have in like other hobbyists, where there'd be like an outsider view in the panel. Whereas like I haven't really looked at the algorithm for the other contests, which I feel a bit embarrassed to admit. But when it comes to CIAC and KIAC and IIAC, when it was around, the panel are all aquascapers. So I know that they value the same things I value, So if like those contests, like objectively, if the work is good, the score is going to be high. And then I don't know. I'm going to find my way in the world with the other contests, and I think that the whole hobby is developing. I think it's good that there are a lot of different contests and a lot of different perspectives in judging between them. It is a shared hobby, so I kind of expect that the pace has kind of been set by the culture that IAPLC created, and yet there's enough variation that we're likely to find like different fads and different moods as we go forward. Also, Aquatic Gardening Association, I think everyone should enter. It's just a great community. It's a great community endeavor. The fact that AGA predates IPLC and has still kind of a fish club sort of mentality and flavor to it. I have to proudly say that I've been in the top 10 and often in the top 3 of AGA ever since 2018. So that's like what, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Hopefully this year 24 as well. But just like how it breaks things into categories and like also has a Dutch category and terrariums and biotope. I just love what AGA does to support the hobby. So definitely please support them by entering. That's really an effort of love and hobby. Anyway, I'd say that compete, just like get in as many contests as you can. And the great thing about many of these international contests now is that they don't limit you to entering just them exclusively. You can enter your work into several.
Do the IAPLC
that means that you're going to get more perspectives on your work as well.
Mm-hmm. Is it still the case where if you enter into the IAPLC, or that you're not allowed to enter that in any other competitions? Is that still the case?
Yes, they are the exclusive one.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's almost like there's the IAPLC season and then there's the non-IAPLC season.
Yeah.
And there's also what was it? There's going to be sorry, it's not coming to me. I can't remember what I was going to say.
That's all right.
Is there one competition that kind of absolutely peaks them all? Like, we can use the analogy of the Olympics that are happening at the moment. For most of the athletes at the Olympics, that is their peak that they are training for the last 4 years. There's competitions on the way. Is there one of them that is just the absolute, the pinnacle of it all for you?
IAPLC is that in many ways, I think. Certainly having the idea of an Olympics of IAPL, like having an Olympics of aquascaping, coming together as a community around one competition is the romance of it, is the vision that's how Amano-san was able to create a dream. You know, around IPLC, we like to say, we have a dream, and we still do, right? Mm-hmm. That dream, that romance created in the nature aquarium world, he was able to bring us all along for the ride by creating the IAPLC, and that's the greatness in that contest. That said, just like we have the Olympics and we have the World Championships and we have any number of contests for the different sports, you know, I think that there should be competition. There should be contention. It's good that we have a global community and now a global community of contests, because the greatest aquascaping contest in the world is going to be the one that the aquascapers choose ultimately. Where do we want to submit our works? Like, where do we want to compete with our brothers, the best brothers and sisters, the best of the best? That's going to be our home. And for now, we have many homes. We have many great homes, I think.
Cool. The Nano Aquarium guy would like to know.
Right. Sorry, I was trying to mention the Chihiro's contest in December. That's another exciting one to look forward to, I think.
Yeah, they've recently just changed their app as well. And you've got a lot of options on their app for their light where you can get involved with the contest through their app as well, which is quite cool. I noticed that today when I was setting my light. I just thought I might mention that.
What's your time frame, or how is your process when you've decided to get entering this competition? D-Day is 13th of October. How do you work back from that date? What is your process to set up to go?
Yeah, standard is 6 months inspiration and inspiration hunting and art and concept. 3 months hardscaping, 3 months on the aquarium itself, but adjustable.
Yeah. So when you say inspiration hunting, is that lots of online searches? There's lots of going out in the wild and going for a walk through the bush, going through rivers. How does that process go for you? Are you got a little mental checklist that you're trying to work through, or you're just out and about and all of a sudden that is incredible?
Yeah, all of that is like ingredient gathering. And then there's also the contests themselves. Of course, is a huge inspiration. Of course, very much looking forward to the KIAC results this weekend, and the IAPLC results to come. The what will come out of the China contest, and there's others like ITAC and Reflac. I also plan to participate in the Chihiro's contest in December. I don't know when the results are going to come out. Oh, and AGA, of course, we've talked about that. Anyway, for all these different contests, and as new works come out, each of them is like their own spark of inspiration as well. So kind of seeing where the fads have gone, what the judges are thinking, reading comments, all of that is important input as well.
So how do you mentioned at the start that you you were living in Japan and now you've moved to New York. Two
Yeah.
completely different environments.
Yeah, really.
Obviously, Japan's known for their gardens and their beautiful natural scenery, whereas New York is a built up, the city centre is more metropolis. How do you finding inspiration in daily life compared to, from living in Japan to New York? Has it dropped dramatically, or do you struggle with that?
If any, okay, so because I lived in downtown Tokyo when I was in Japan, but now I live in Westchester County, and in my backyard there are deer and beavers and with groundhogs and what other animals have I seen? I've seen rabbits, of course, squirrels, minks. So there's a river flowing through my backyard. It's actually a jungle back there, and my day job, I'm a marketer for IBM, and our headquarters, Armonk, is like a giant version of the ADA headquarters. That's what I thought when I first visited there. I'm like, oh my God, it's a giant steel and concrete block in the middle of a huge forest. Like, this is what I always wanted to do. This is what I thought when I got to headquarters for the first time. Because, like, literally, I step outside the building, and then because the trees come above the level of the building, so I'm like looking down into the canopy, even from my office window. But like I take a stroll outside of the IBM headquarters, and there's ponds and like super clear water with plants growing through rocky ways. It's actually incredible. And now we've opened a new road between headquarters and another local office called North Castle. So I have to not get in trouble by walking the path between the two offices too often. Now, I haven't done it yet, but I definitely plan to do that. Anyway, I'd say that like your own physical surroundings aren't the only important thing. Of course, like there's so much online content right now, and I love looking at works from like Chris Lookop and other underwater guys. Like, I don't know if you have checked out this new YouTube channel called Biotopia, a guy in the UK. I really love his stuff. Yeah. His underwater footage from Brazil is pretty incredible. So I'm always looking for new places of inspiration like that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to his book coming out, actually. It's just been delayed, so it's going to be another year. But that'll be a really, really good book when it comes out.
So I thought that must have been getting close, but if it's been delayed again, that's not so ideal.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because not a lot of, I think I'm mostly known for like big, huge diorama stuff, and yet there's like 20 or 30% of folks who follow me whose favorite aquascape, maybe more than that, but like, 20 to 40% of the people who follow me whose favorite work of mine is Amanogawa, which was like purely recreation of a Japanese river. I don't have Japanese fish in there, but all species from Japan. And Amanogawa, the name means Milky Way galaxy in Japanese, but you could also translate it as Amano's river. And Risia and hairgrass is like that famous combination that Amano-san created and really evangelized in his Nature Aquarium World Series. Those two, with Risia not being that popular anymore, and Potome Getengai is like a trio he used in some works that I also feature prominently in that scape. So we could call it like the biotope inspired nature aquarium, right? And like that is clearly Ono-san's favorite of my tanks. That is like the favorite. If the biotope community pays any attention to me, it's for works like that. And I love those types of aquascapes. I hope I can do more of them in the future. But that's why I really like that what Ty is doing on his channel. Like it's just really fascinating.
The photography process is a whole new beast within itself. Have you always been interested in taking photos, or is it something you've had to develop as a part of your aquascaping journey? And how does the photography process work for you when you're getting ready to basically compete in a competition?
Sure. For the first couple of contests, Masashi Ono was my cameraman. I actually hired him to come and do my photography. But, we were also a student and teacher, and he taught me a lot about aquarium photography during that process. Actually, I'd say that my technique for taking my photos is almost completely evolved out of Odo-san's skills. So I don't really want to talk about too much how I do it, because if you want to learn how, ask Ono-san. He's the one who taught me. I feel like he should have rights to disclose how much he wants.
Cool. No worries at all. Actually, we've got a question from the floor that we started. We'll go through that first. Have you, I don't know, you have discussed your water parameters alike. Do you have good water, or do you sort of make up your own water from RO water as you go?
I really want an RO unit. I had the ADA water, ADA water, which is like their mini RO unit, or like filter, when I was in Japan, pre-filter when I was in Japan, and used it for all my water changes. This year, like, I've just been kind of raw dogging it, water in, water out treatment. And like I said, I'm not really a tester kind of guy, but it's worked out. I'm just kind of like, oh, well, like Westchester, the nature around here looks really nice, and the water in my river looks really nice. So maybe the water is really, it's kind of the attitude that I've had to it, honestly. And then what I can say is that, with like Petco and PetSmart being my only outlet for getting fish around here easily, like I had to buy from them and had several of them die on me, unfortunately. But took it back. They tested the water and said it was fantastic. So, okay, I say that I did a good job then.
What was your first aquascape that you were genuinely proud of?
Oh, I think that would be the 2017 work. Well, yeah, okay. So 2017, I made an aquascape with flame moss. It's actually a type of algae that I was trying to recreate. Those riverways in Bolivia that turn red once a year. Cano Cristal.
Oh, the Rainbow River.
Yeah. So you can check out that aquascape. The result is not good, ranked 525. But I think like you can see the amount of passion to go from basically zero to creating that aquascape. If you look at the structure and the intent and the work itself, I think you can see like how much passion I poured in and why I'm still proud of that layout. That said, my first time entering IAPLC was in 2007, and I actually got ranked 71 right off the jump. And that was escape in a 60-centimeter dorm aquarium with lava rock I had brought back from my time in Japan studying abroad. And it was basically an iwagumi, just an iwagumi with very bright green plants like tier, like hemianthus, like HC and HM. And I was trying to create the type of contrast that you see at the Hawaii beach between black lava and naupaka, which is a similarly round-leafed bright green plant. And I'm proud of that aquascape too, actually. I think like even though my understanding that if you look at that work, that is just instinct. It's not really coming from any type of real understanding about composition or these higher concepts that we think of as so normal. After Josh went ahead and shared them with everybody on the Green Aqua channel, but like that aquascape is just sense, it's just instinct, and just fad of HC being popular at the time. And yet, I think like that work still shows how much time and energy I poured into that 60 centimeter tank in my dorm room. So I'm proud of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. What are some critical elements that you think you need to do for a successful aquascape?
Sorry, what?
What are some critical elements that you feel that need to be done for a successful aquascape?
Well, again, I think the word success is very loaded, right? Because I mentioned how in our process of preparing for the contest, it's like you start off with a number, that's the goal, and then everything surrounds itself. So like if your goal is different, then success is different, right? If my goal is just to have a beautiful planted aquarium in my living room that I love and that those around me love, that's a different goal, right? And so I think success is different in that case.
Do you have an aquarium in your living room by any chance?
No.
No.
My aquariums are in the basement, out of the way of my wife.
I understand. Cool. Where am I at with my list?
How much longer are we gonna go for, you think?
As long as you want.
As long as you want to go. If you're needing to go, we can pull pin. If you want to keep going, we can keep going.
I really appreciate the time. How about we take like 2 more questions then?
Yeah, all means.
Good as gold. Let me run through. I had one earlier that I saw. What are some common mistakes that people make when starting in the aquascaping journey?
Some common mistakes. Let's see. Do I take the answers that are true, or do I take the answers that drive my own agenda? Let's see. I mean, there's so many different small mistakes that people make when they start. We could talk at the really manini ones about like fish, aquarium size and whatnot. But I think like the one I like to talk about is whether they go with the diorama style versus go with the nature aquarium traditionalist style. And also, I like to frame it in the same way that I think about aquarium size, which is that aquarium size is an interesting thing because so often people buy a small aquarium as their first aquarium, right? But as fish people, as aquarists, what do we know about that decision? Well, we know that the smaller the aquarium is, the harder it is to find balance. The smaller the aquarium is, the more advanced your skill has to be in order to get the success that you want, whether that's with plants or fish, because so much more can go wrong so much more easily. In a similar fashion, so in that context, even though the small aquarium is cheaper and therefore easier entry, right? Paradoxically, it's the harder one. It's the one that takes more advanced skill. So it's the bigger aquarium that's easier for a beginner to deal with. In a similar light, what we see in the aquascaping hobby is that it's easier to try do the simpler, the Zen quote unquote, or traditionalist style aquascapes with maybe just a little bit of rock and maybe 1 or 2 pieces of wood. But paradoxically, it's harder to do that well from a composition standpoint because it takes very good instincts. It takes very good feeling. And often those instincts and feeling require very much built up experience in order to get right. Like Hironori Honda, who is like the store manager at H2 in Tokyo and was the 2018 world champion. That's right. He's a direct disciple of Amano. He has set literally hundreds and hundreds of aquascapes before making that world champion aquascape, and he is driving purely off instinct. It's not like a big academic endeavor for him, but he's reached that level of instinct, that level of feeling through trial and error, through accumulated experience. So paradoxically, the style that has the fewest elements is the hardest to get right and takes the most advanced skills in order to approach. Whereas like if you're making yourself a photo, like let's say you just find a really beautiful photo of a forest and you think this is what I want to recreate in my aquarium. Yeah, that's easy to understand. It's objective. Like you already have the photo. You don't need to imagine it. It's just there. Then whether or not you can recreate it, it's a very hit or miss type of exercise. You literally just have to find the right pieces, stick it in, compare them, and you're either right or you're wrong. You either got it or you didn't, And like either that pebble that you placed in the very far back is way too big, because in your common sense it feels small, but it's actually huge to be a faraway mountain. Or the rock the huge rock you felt, this is my father's stone, you compare it to the photo, and like, is it actually taking the same space in the aquarium that cliff face takes in the frame of the photo? You either hit it or you didn't, you know? So it's very objective, easy to understand. So from that sense, like, for those who want to improve rapidly, it is a much more expensive cost to enter to get enough rocks and wood and material to make a diorama style aquascape. But it's much easier to track your progress. It's much easier to see whether you're right or wrong, because it's just objective comparison, right? And if you check out my video, one of my master skills aquascapes, one of my master skills video really delves into this, some techniques you can use to get that one-to-one recreation of an image that you want. And then once you have developed those skills through the diorama style, you'll start to build the senses, the instincts that will let you really succeed with the nature aquarium style. That's actually what happened with Josh Sim, right? You look at his early work, it's all diorama stuff, forest, again and again and again. But after doing forest so many times and working with wood so many times and learning balance, learning where the weight of the aquarium of the composition should be, then he like jumped off a cliff somewhere, and suddenly he could nature aquascape. Is like maybe he's the best nature aquascaper in the world right now.
Cool. What is some of the most memorable feedback that you've received from your work, or on your work? Sorry.
Okay. Oh, and this is the last question.
Yeah.
Okay. Most memorable feedback. Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna do a disservice if I don't pick the most special and best one. But let's see.
Like, given
Yeah.
Like a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is hard.
From the stories you've told, I would pick the one about the one pebble.
Oh, the what? Oh, from Ono-san's improvement of my one layout.
The best feedback you told us about.
Yeah. Going back to that. Jeez, man, this is actually hard.
It wasn't mean to stump you this much. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think it's actually to pick his favorite child. Yeah, exactly. Right. I could go back to Ono-san, I think, because that pebble really did just knock me into the right place. So for that 2017 aquascape, I really screwed up. Like, it was not in a good place. And like I said, that was my least experienced for you know what? No, you know what? I was going to tell a story. Okay, I'll tell that one real quick. Because I was so inexperienced and I was so, out of it. I was so inexperienced and I was so out of it that I was literally doing like 2 hours of sleep a night for the 2 weeks into the photo shoot, and barely any sleep, like a month going into the photo shoot, because I could just tell like things were not where they needed to be. Like, there were compositional mistakes, there were plant mistakes, there were more things I needed to improve on. I still had to maintain the aquarium. I still had to get rid of algae. Even I was like ripping things out and putting them in and constantly talking to Fukasan and Ono-san about how to improve. And through all of that, like, in some ways, even as I worked, the tank suffered in other ways, and I suffered in many ways. And like, after that photo shoot with Ono-san, I literally slept for 20 hours after that photo shoot was done. I was like gone. And like, that was the first time I woke up and it was like night on the next day or something. I can't remember. It was crazy, but like my whole body hurt. That was the first time I felt my whole body hurt that much. It was like tingling pain and like suffering throughout. But after the photo shoot, Ono-san said, Steven, like, I don't know where this aquascape is going to land. It might be appreciated. It might not be, but I appreciate you. I appreciate what went into this. And I told Ono-san, thank you for coming and dragging me across the finish line, because I was like, like dead on the finish line. But it was like he, as my photographer, came in, grabbed me, and just like pulled me over, and that's what I needed. But still, to have him in my corner and appreciate me for that was, incredible. And then like I wanted to tell a more modern story because like a month before this, like I said, I guess it's in these downtimes that things can be really inspiring because honestly, before this work for KIAC, I didn't know if it was going to end up well. I thought like, I'd spent so much time not on the aquarium and like trying to find my footing here in New York. And I was just like, I don't know if this is going to be a good work or not. But my buddy Hip Hong said, Steven, if it fails, whatever. Like you had an off year. Everyone has an off year. Like at where we are, like think about it. Like that, what I said before about the vast majority of hobbyists not even wanting to touch this. Your worst effort is like more incredible than some people's wildest dreams. Just remember that. And also, if you are serious about fixing it, you can and will. You're Steven motherfucking Chong. You just do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something after hearing that clicked. I was like, he's right. And I just like brought things together and started talking to people, started getting some more objective opinions. And after Josh recommended this one piece of wood to plug in, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, looking at it, the plants are going to save my ass because the plants have decided that they don't want to lose. They have shaped themselves into an aquascape that is going to be great. I'm going to answer their feelings, and I'm going to take that motivation I got from Hip, and we're doing this. So I'm really proud of the aquascape that was created. I don't know what the result is going to be Saturday, guys. If it was a total train wreck, apologies for trying to build an inspirational story about it, but I'm proud of that work. I think it's a really good one. Look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it now as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Good old Heap for the encouragement, no. Definitely.
We like to end our streams what we call the quick score of 6, which is 6 very short answer questions. They're not meant to stump you. Every now and then they do. The first question is, doing a coin toss, do you call heads or tails?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
When doing a coin toss, do you call heads or tails?
All right, heads.
Cool. Are you a tea or a coffee drinker?
Coffee.
Are we alone in the universe?
I hope not.
Cool.
I'd say no, probably.
Cool. If you could have a meal with anybody alive or dead from any point in time, fiction or real, who would that be?
A meal with any person alive or dead, fiction or real. I'd say that I'd want to meet again and speak again with my painting master from before, Hiroshi Tagami.
Cool. Paper, scissors, rocks. What's your first call?
Paper, scissors, or rock? Scissors.
Cool. What's your unicorn fish or plant in this case that you've never worked with, dealt with, want to see, want to grow? What is that one bit that you're still longing for?
Oh man. I really want to try one day having an aquascape with something like alligator gars or pike cichlid, or just something that looks like that. Have an aquascape that really matches that type of lean, thin predator vibe, like a barracuda in swimming through a plant. That would be cool, I think.
And where can people find you? It's a completely shameless plug for anything you want to plug.
Thank you. Steve Scapes, YouTube or Instagram. I even had the shameless plug of putting in my name here the whole time. I really regret that now. My face is because I'm like trying to get over here, but like anyway, yeah. Folks who are interested in following me, please follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube at Steve Scapes.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's really appreciated. And thank you very much, everybody who has been in the chat with us. I would personally like to leave this live stream on something that Zena's just brought up. That next time I think anybody is struggling with an aquascape, they're going to tell themselves that they're Steve motherfucking Chong and see if it works for them as well. So that I think is really cool.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you everybody for being here with us today. I hope you have a really good day and have a good one, team. Happy fish keeping, and catch you later.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much.